Here's how we took triathlete Maison Martinez from sitting upper 80s, topping out at 91 with a near 10 ERA to now sitting 94 and topping out at 96 in his junior year. My name is Paul here at Triathletics, and here's exactly how we went through that process. When I first initially got Mason, I did my own personal research, looked up his stats, saw what was going on, saw that we weren't really collecting a lot of strikeouts. Walk rate, not very good. The whip was about a 2. So I knew that there was some typical things that occur, especially as a guy's going into his freshman year. There's an adjustment on their schedule side, whole routine, playing with grown men essentially. And so the idea is what actually happened, because sometimes stats can only tell one part of the story. Really what I was looking for is like at the splits. Did he improve as the season got on? What kind of forward momentum was he able to take with him going into the summer when we started at that point, going into his sophomore year? That's when really the pieces started to connect. That there was improvement, a little bit shaky at first, but he was starting to become a better pitcher as the season kind of projected as a freshman. So once Mason and I got on the first initial call, I really like to establish, what is the athlete's goals in mind? It doesn't necessarily have to be purely velocity. It can be things like on the routine side, to then their preparation, to, pitch arsenal. And that way you can sort of create this roadmap for them. His 3 goals were pretty clear cut. One thing was to become a better overall athlete, to actually collect and become better as a pitcher. So pitchability, understanding how to pitch was another key thing that he just hadn't quite developed at his youth and as a freshman in college. And then his number 3 goal was to become a professional pitcher at some point in his college career. So the biggest thing that I identified was that he still kind of had softness to his tonnage in his body. So the idea was, could we get better at, one, just tracking nutrition, tracking macro goals? Can he actually become aware of his meal decisions? And then we sort of adapt from there, because you have to sort of create this awareness when you're talking about, nutrition specifically. It's really from the mental side and committing to those things. And it's not that we have to be so strict to the point that, we can't enjoy foods. And that was a clear thing that I made to Mason. And not that his diet was overly all that bad. It was just mixing the right things involved within his macros, to then his also meal decisions from a day-to-day aspect. To then could we, improve some mobility? The spine was rather locked up. I'm in both T-spine rotation, lateral flexion. Could we open up the hips just a little bit more, both internal and external rotation? That way he was able to actually clear the hips more efficiently in his delivery. Then could we actually give this perspective of what time was? So obviously he was a freshman. He had the overall goal to become a professional pitcher. So then it aligns with the goals, right? So when we think about time, we have to think about where are we trying to set this up? Like my job is to really build this roadmap, with these sticking points and guiding, where I'm trying to take an athlete, in this case Mason, with me as a facilitator, him as the executioner, right? So first, could we get the body in check? Could we just improve systems, mobility, preparation, routine? And then can we understand that we're about 2 years away from when eligibility actually comes in the draft, right? So going into a sophomore year, can we improve performance stuff here in our first year together, being his sophomore year? And then as we transition into his junior year, can we have the product in check so he actually has the chance to become a draft prospect? From the mechanic side of things, you can talk about just like what mechanical efficiency was. So the biggest thing was that very much so tilting the pelvis uphill, kind of out of peak leg lift, which is going to affect his ability to actually load a proper backside and actually store energy on his back leg, which then kind of bleeded into a byproduct effect here, is that he wasn't able to kind of clear the backside going into front foot strike. With that in mind, he was very short-strided for his height, his length, his limbs. So naturally, he was getting into the ground a lot sooner, forcing the arm to be late. And when the arm is late, you're really going to find some of those inconsistencies. So it started to very match well with what he was experiencing. So secondary pitches weren't consistent on a shape side of things, not able to kind of command it into the right places that he was going, at least understanding what his misses were doing. And that was really purely on the mechanical side. There were, some things that we were addressing outside of the mobility, the explosiveness side, but also on the constraint side in his skill work and his preparation going into a throwing session, into a bullpen, and into ultimately games. So something that I knew very early on is that Mason really wanted to be and wants to be a really good pitcher. He loves competition. He loves the idea of having the ball when the game matters and being able to show up there for the team so the team can win ball games, right? His initial mindset was very much just throw strikes, which is very common at a young age because you're trying to get in games and you know that you have to kind of fill it up in the zone to get repetitive innings, but also give yourself a chance in meaningful innings themselves. So could we work on shifting using that mindset to attack with intent, right? Instead of being a little bit passive and thinking about a result that you cannot control in terms of command. Like I usually like to say that, you could throw a ball right down the middle, and depending upon the day, the umpire could call it a ball, right? So if we could think about it from a more aggressive approach, attack with intent, and then throwing through the catcher, and the command will take care of itself, right? Because if you're throwing through the mid and you're sort of narrowing down that external focus, you're not really becoming a result-oriented thinker on the mound on that aspect. So that was a huge thing, and also as we were evaluating there in our first year, kind of in season, which would be his sophomore year, we went on a hot streak where he went just about 20 innings scoreless to start the year. And then I remember he went through a stretch where he started to give up some runs, some more hits than what was more normal. And we kind of talked about, we don't want to assume that results are just going to happen, right? In the end, you have to get on the mound and take it. And that was a really big, important emphasis for him as he was able to kind of go into outings with that approach. As confidence improved, and the velo and the stuff kind of improved, that mental approach day to day was a lot easier for him to go in with full conviction on. The other piece of this too, we kind of have a little jokey manner now where I say this common theme of like move the needle, right? And what this really does is that it gives you the chance to think about it in not quick results, but more long-lasting time in those results, okay? And so if we continue to move the needle each day, you're going to really give yourself a chance to really let those results come into fruition on the performance side. So from an arsenal development, I knew that the fastball was in a good place. Even looking at video, it kind of had this carry and run profile. Even when he came in-house and playing catch with him, it was just very heavy feel to it. The old was in a decent place. It was at about 17 inches of carry, 15 inches of run or horizontal break on that front. But the interesting part is as we were able to, naturally get the arm more on time, he actually added 2 inches of vert, so now averaging 19 and a half, to then cutting down how much horizontal run he was getting to 12 and a half to 13 now. On the changeup side, there really just wasn't any separation from the fastball. It was carrying roughly at 11 inches of vert there, so 6 inches of separation there, which just wasn't enough for it to be a weapon, more of just a true slower fastball. What we did is we really switched that orientation to a kick change. He has the ability to both in supination and pronation, which is rather unique on his case. And so now that thing is averaging 4.5 inches of vert, which is now a 15-inch gap in separation to now 16 inches plus of run. So now it is a clear, distinct pitch from each other and can be actually used as a weapon. The slider was probably one of the biggest pieces that we had to work through. And again, for reasons that I mentioned, like with some of those mechanical problems, with the arm being late, it just is going to cause inconsistency in shape because the arm timing is actually not there. So what he was dealing with was the slider was creating kind of cutter profile. Sometimes it would sweep, sometimes it would gyro. And so as we sort of shifted, not only on the mechanical side, but also mindset, like the biggest thing for him is to throw everything hard, right? Throw everything hard with intent. Now that's averaging about 86, 87 and has a consistent profile there. True slider from 0 to 5 inches of horizontal to then, also the vert side is staying relatively at 0 as well. Like so 0 and then 5 inches of sweep. The other adjustment that we made with that to help it be more consistent was getting the thumb kind of more on the side of the baseball. That way he could actually get around it on the side and actually pull with conviction there. On the curveball side, this was an interesting piece that I thought as the velo increased, he could actually throw it harder. It started just like a little bit more loopier, popping out of the hands a bit in the upper 70s range. We added kind of a little bit of a spike orientation to allow him to actually get the ball out in front a little bit better with that middle finger. And so now he's able to throw that relatively averaging 82, 84, which is a clear separation from the slider. So now he has different approaches where on swing path, like if a guy is swinging more steep or more level, he can kind of throw the curveball with intent to get swing and miss as well, versus just being handcuffed to the one slider pitch there. Where Mason is at now, originally started at Virginia Commonwealth, and now he is a part of Florida State, where he is now sitting 94, topping out at 96 with a 4-pitch mix. Currently around a dozen plus K per 9, which obviously there's still more to the season, but the way that he is very much projecting with these continued results, has the ability to have improved command. Less walks are down already this year. I really do think that he has a very good chance and a good shot at the draft here in 2025. The sky's the limit for Mason Martinez, and I couldn't be more proud of his diligence, his work to commit to his process in full and trusting what time could really give him. So now if you're a college athlete or any athlete alike in a similar situation as Mason, click the link below. Here at Tri Athletics, we believe in rewriting those stories. Much like Mason experienced, you can be a part of the journey as well. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.